People ask me all the time when I first realized she wasn't coming back. Honestly, I think deep down I knew the night she whispered goodbye. Like it was a promise, not just a warning. It was a Thursday. Strange how your brain clings to details like that, as if the day of the week changes anything. I got home late after my shift. Uniform stained with blood from a motorcycle wreck, still reeking of diesel and adrenaline. And the house was dead quiet. Too quiet. The kids were out cold. Caleb had passed out on top of his blanket again. Book still open beside him. Maya had kicked off her socks the way she always did. One jammed between the bed frame and the wall. But Lauren wasn't there. At first, I figured maybe she'd stepped out to clear her head. She used to take walks at night when life got too heavy. Then I saw the note sitting on the kitchen counter, right next to the leftover lasagna I'd brought home. It wasn't long, just a short paragraph. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I need to figure out who I am again. I don't know what that means yet, but I can't do it here. Please take care of the kids. I'll reach out when I can. Lauren. I must have read that thing a dozen times, like maybe the words would change if I stared at them long enough. That was the night everything split wide open. The next morning, I told Caleb and Maya their mom had gone to visit a friend. I told them it was only for a little while. I told them it wasn't their fault. And I lied. Over and over. Because how do you explain abandonment to an 8-year-old who still thinks there are monsters hiding in closets? I didn't bother going to work that day. I called Hannah, my younger sister, and she came right over. She didn't ask much. Just glanced at me, then at the letter, and put on a pot of coffee without saying a word. That's always been her style. Solid when everything else falls apart. I sat at the dining table while Maya ate her cereal and Caleb watched cartoons like the world hadn't just flipped upside down. Lauren's chair sat empty. I kept waiting to hear her slippers shuffle across the floor, her laugh, anything. But nothing came. The first few days I ran on autopilot. Wake up, make breakfast, pack lunches, pretend. Every buzz of the phone, I hoped it was her. And every time it wasn't, that same heavy thud hit my chest all over again. People noticed. Neighbors, coworkers, even my mom. They all circled around it but never asked straight out. I think they were scared of what the answer might be. On the 6th night, after the kids were asleep, I opened a blank notebook and wrote, Day 6. I think the kids still believe me for now. But I don't believe myself. I keep replaying everything. Did I miss the signs? Was she unhappy for years? Was I just too tired to see it? I don't know how to be both parents. I don't know how to keep this house standing while I'm falling apart inside. I shut the book and shoved it into a drawer. That became my ritual. My way of bleeding quietly onto paper. We weren't perfect. Nobody is. But we had our patterns. Friday night pizza. Saturday mornings at the park. Laundry on Sundays. I thought those routines meant something. Lauren never said the word affair. She never hinted at another person. But in the months before she left, she had started slipping away. Fewer kisses. Less laughter. That far-off look in her eyes, like she was already half gone. She was changing. And I told myself it was just motherhood wearing her down. I kept thinking we'd fix it later. When the kids got older, we'd travel again. We'd talk again. We'd find our way back. But later never showed up. I washed her favorite coffee mug and set it back on the shelf, like she might use it tomorrow. I left her jacket on the hook for weeks. The silence in our bedroom was crushing. I started sleeping on the couch, not just from exhaustion, but because her absence echoed louder in that room than anywhere else. One night, Caleb had a nightmare and crawled into bed with me. I wrapped him in my arms, and he whispered, Is Mommy coming home tomorrow? I told him, maybe. He never asked again. Somewhere out there, Lauren was starting fresh, and here I was unraveling. But 2 small hearts were beating under this roof, and they needed me steady. So I got up each morning, made breakfast, and smiled through the cracks. Because disappearing wasn't an option. It wasn't the nights that broke me. It was the mornings. Waking up to Caleb arguing with the toaster, Maya crying that her socks were the itchy ones, and realizing, day after day, that nobody else was coming to help. No backup. No partner. No one to tag in. Just me. Every little task felt heavier. Making lunches was like packing rations for a battle. Brushing Maya's hair turned into a negotiation I had no training for. And laundry, I finally understood why my mom sometimes cried over it. At first, I tried to keep the same routine. Lauren's calendar was still hanging by the fridge, covered in doodles and little notes about dentist visits and birthdays. I left it there like a ghost of who we used to be, but it slowly became a calendar of absence. Every unchecked box reminded me, she's not here. I didn't even bother flipping the page when the month ended. I just stopped looking. One afternoon, the school called. Caleb had shoved another kid during recess. When I picked him up, he sat in the car with his arms crossed, jaw locked tight. I asked what happened. He muttered. He said my mom didn't want me. I almost pulled over. My chest stopped cold for a beat. I told him, that's not true. Your mom just needs some time. It's not about you. He stared out the window and stayed quiet the whole way home. That night, after Maya passed out watching Frozen again, I found Caleb sitting on his bedroom floor, cutting shapes from notebook paper. What are you making, buddy? I asked. He said, a card, in case she comes back. I didn't know if I was supposed to smile or break down crying, so I just sat there with him. We didn't talk much. We just kept folding little paper hearts while the world kept spinning without her. At work, people eventually stopped asking how I was holding up. They'd already done the polite check-in. You hanging in there? Let us know if you need anything. The kind of lines people throw out when they've got nothing real to say. I didn't mind the silence. In fact, I preferred it over pity. Still, on those long overnight shifts, I'd catch myself staring too long at the blinking lights on the ambulance dashboard, wondering if Lauren ever thought about us in those quiet hours. Wondering if she was happier now. Wondering if Cole, yeah, I knew his name by then, even though she never said it, was worth walking away from everything. Hannah had warned me. One night over coffee, she told me, you're acting like grief is a finish line you can sprint past. It's not. It's a wave. Either it knocks you flat or you learn how to move through it. The truth was, I didn't feel like I was moving through anything. I felt like I was drowning in slow motion. Not long after, Caleb started bringing home drawings that unsettled me. Stick figures of a house split in half. On one side a man and two kids, on the other side nothing at all. His teacher pulled me aside at pickup one afternoon and said softly, we're seeing some emotional displacement. Would you consider having him see a counselor? I didn't even let her finish before nodding. I'd do anything to keep that haunted look from getting stuck behind his eyes. Then came the day I finally broke. It was a Tuesday. I just finished an 18-hour shift and walked into a disaster. Dishes piled in the sink, Maya screaming because her favorite socks were in the wash, Caleb's homework ruined with spilled cereal, the dog had puked on the rug, and 3 overdue bills were shoved under the microwave. I stood there in the kitchen and blurted out, I can't do this. Not to anyone. Just to the air. To the refrigerator. To the silence she left behind. Maya stopped crying. Caleb came around the corner and stared at me, and I realized too late those were words kids should never hear. Words that sound like you're giving up on them, even if you're still right there. I dropped down on my knees, pulled both of them close, and told them, I didn't mean it. I'm just tired, that's all. But I'm not leaving. Not ever. Promise. Maya sniffled, wiped her nose on my shirt, and whispered, It's okay, Daddy. I can wear the scratchy socks today. Somehow that undid me even more. Later that night, I wrote in the notebook, Day 39. I lost it today. Right in front of them. I swore I wouldn't, but I did. The guilt is crushing. They didn't ask for this. I'm trying to be 2 parents and I'm failing. I miss her so much it aches in my bones. But I can't hate her either. Because if I hate her, they'll feel that hate in themselves. And I can't let them carry that too. Tomorrow I'll try again. 'Cause really, what other choice do I have? People like to say kids are resilient. I'm not sure if that's really true, or if they're just better at hiding the cracks than we are. A few months after Lauren walked out, we all quietly stopped waiting. There wasn't a family talk or some big announcement, But one morning Caleb quit, leaving an extra slice of toast for her. Maya stopped asking when she'd be back, and I stopped checking my phone before I went to sleep. We never said it out loud. We just shifted. I began waking up before the kids, packing lunches, and drinking one full cup of coffee in the stillness before the house stirred. That silence used to haunt me, but now I clung to it. I needed it like armor, like breath. The new rhythm wasn't pretty. It was survival patched together with duct tape and willpower. Mondays meant laundry. Tuesdays were leftovers. Wednesdays turned into grilled cheese and cartoons after school, because some nights I didn't have it in me to cook and keep myself together. Fridays I tried to slip out of work early, so we could have one night where no one was rushing, no one was faking. Hannah showed up every Thursday. She'd fold laundry, wash dishes, drop off groceries. She never lingered or hovered, but just having her there steadied me in a way I hadn't realized I needed. Once, she told me, "You're doing better than you think." I didn't answer. I just kept scrubbing peanut butter off a plate. Maya started calling me Mommy Daddy. Sometimes, usually when she was tired or angling for something sweet. The first time I laughed. The second time it cut straight through me. I never corrected her. I wasn't sure if I even had the right. Caleb, meanwhile, grew quieter. He stopped sitting at the piano, something he and Lauren used to do together, and he quit drawing altogether. One day I asked if he wanted to join the school art club. He shook his head. Later that week, while I was folding socks, he asked out of nowhere, "She's not coming back, right?" I froze. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I do know I'm here. Always." He nodded like he understood more than any 8-year-old ever should. That night, I opened the notebook again and wrote, Day 88. They're adjusting. I can't tell if that's healing or just heartbreak in disguise. Maya's stopped crying at bedtime. Caleb doesn't bring her up anymore. Is that good? Or is it repression? Some days I want to erase her. Other days, I catch myself whispering her name when no one's around. In May, we went to the zoo, just the three of us. I packed sandwiches and juice boxes. Caleb brought along a disposable camera he'd pulled from a cereal box, and Maya wore a floppy sun hat far too big for her head. At one point, we stood watching giraffes, and she slipped her hand into mine. Without a word, Caleb snapped a picture of us. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't even all that joyful, but it was real. And for a moment I felt okay. Then summer rolled in, bringing the long stretch of days I used to rely on Lauren to help fill. Swim lessons, library trips, sunscreen battles, the endless juggle of keeping two kids busy while working and pretending I wasn't unraveling inside. But somehow we got through. One night, lying on the floor with a movie playing, Maya crawled into my lap and whispered, "We're still a family, right?" I nodded and said, "Always." That night, my journal entry was brief. Day 121. I think we're learning how to live again. It's not the same life, but maybe that's okay. Started small, almost too quiet to notice at first. "Why don't we call Mommy anymore?" Maya asked one afternoon while coloring at the kitchen table. She didn't even look up, just said it like she was asking for more juice. Simple, direct, and it hit me like a punch to the stomach. I was slicing apples at the counter. My hands kept moving, but my breath didn't. "She's busy right now, sweetheart," I told her. "She'll call when she can." Maya nodded. "Okay," she said easily, then added, "Do you think she still likes dogs?" We didn't even own a dog. Lauren had always wanted one, but said she couldn't handle the mess. "I think she probably still likes dogs," I said, my voice tighter than I wanted. She went right back to her coloring, like nothing happened. But for me, that was the beginning. Caleb never asked questions like Maya did. His came colder, more calculated, curled up inside bits of logic. One night after dinner, he looked up from his homework and asked, "How far can a person drive in 8 hours?" "Depends how fast you're going," I said. "Why?" "No reason." But I knew. He was tracing highways in his mind, trying to measure the distance between himself and the mother who had vanished without even saying goodbye. I started dreading bedtime, not because the routine was exhausting, though it always was, but because that's when the questions showed up. Why did Mommy leave? Did I do something wrong? Does she still love us? And the one that broke me every time. Do you think she'll come home if I'm really good? I gave them the only version of the truth I thought they could handle. No, it's not your fault. Yes, she loves you. I don't know when she'll come back. Half-truths, hopeful lies, desperate omissions. I kept telling myself I was protecting them, sparing their hearts. But every night I wondered if I was building a wall between them and the truth so high they'd never be able to climb down from it. Hannah saw it. One night she came over and found me sitting on the porch with my head in my hands, the baby monitor hissing beside me. I can't keep doing this, I whispered. Yes, you can, she said. I looked at her. What if they hate me when they're older? What if they find out the truth and think I kept it from them? You didn't lie. You softened it, she told me. That's what parents do. But I wasn't sure I believed her. One afternoon, Caleb was digging through drawers for batteries and came across an old photo. Lauren holding him as a baby, her face lit up with joy. He carried it over and asked, "Was she happy then?" I stared at it. "Yeah," I said. "She was." He stayed quiet for a long time. Then he asked, "Was she happy when she left?" I looked him in the eye and gave him the only answer I had. "I don't know." That night, I wrote in the notebook, on the 146th day, their questions are sharper now. Not just where, but why. I don't have answers, and I'm terrified that when I finally do, everything will change. Later that same week, I overheard Maya whispering to her stuffed animals. "She had to go find herself," she said softly. "But I hope she doesn't forget where we are." I walked out before she noticed the tears running down my face. There's a line every parent has to walk. Somewhere between truth and protection, between giving your kids the facts and letting them stay soft a little longer. I don't know which side I fall on anymore. All I know is the questions keep coming, and I keep trying to answer them in ways that won't shatter them. Or me. For a long time, I thought I was carrying this weight alone. Just me, 2 kids, and a life I barely recognized anymore. But grief has a strange way of drawing quiet witnesses. People who notice the cracks and step in without expecting thanks or attention. They don't announce themselves as rescuers. They just show up. Hannah was the first, of course. She was always around before, but after Lauren left, she shifted from being the fun aunt who showed up with candy and sarcasm to something more steady, almost sacred. A presence I didn't have to perform for. She started coming every Thursday like it was on the calendar, though we never said it out loud. Some days she folded laundry. Some days she dropped off groceries. Some days she just sat on the floor with me while I cried. Once she brought over lasagna, the kind Lauren used to make on Sundays. I stared at it for 5 minutes before sliding the dish aside. Hannah didn't say a word. She just made grilled cheese instead. Then there was Mr. Lawson, Caleb's 5th grade teacher. He called me after school one day, said he'd noticed Caleb had stopped raising his hand. "He's still doing the work," he told me gently, "but something's dimmed." I gave him a partial truth, enough to explain without spelling it all out. Mr. Lawson said, "I run a book club on Fridays after school. Just a quiet place for kids to hang out. No pressure, no assignments. Would Caleb want to come?" That night I asked Caleb and he shrugged. "Maybe." He ended up going, and from then on, every Friday, Mr. Lawson would send me short updates. Read 3 chapters. Laughed at a joke. Took an extra cookie home. Those texts became little lifelines in weeks that often felt unbearable. Maya had Miss Turner. Her pre-K teacher looked like any other woman in cardigans from Target and cheetah print flats. But to me she felt like some kind of angel. One afternoon she pulled me aside and said, "She misses her mom, but she's hanging on. She talks about you a lot. Says you make pancakes shaped like stars." I laughed. "They're more like lumpy clouds." Miss Turner smiled. "She thinks they're perfect." Then she reached into her bag and handed me a folder. "Just some worksheets and drawings she's proud of. Maybe you'd like to hang them on the fridge." I took it home and ended up crying over a crayon picture of a house with 3 smiling figures and a rainbow overhead. At the top, Maya had scrawled family. And then there was Sophie. She worked part-time at the Firehouse Dispatch. About my age, sharp-witted, no nonsense. She had an ex-husband who'd moved to Arizona. We weren't close, but she noticed. One night, after a long shift, I was sitting on the bench out back staring into space when she came out, handed me a lukewarm cup of vending machine coffee, and said, "You look like a man who hasn't slept since Reagan was in office." I laughed for the first time in weeks. She didn't dig or ask questions. Just sat there for 20 minutes, letting the silence do its work. After that, she started checking in. Nothing dramatic. Just simple things like, "Want me to grab the kids?" Or, "Need a frozen meal dropped off?" Or, "Don't forget picture day. Maya's gonna want her sparkly shirt." She never made me feel like a burden. And maybe that's why one night, sitting in my driveway after a late shift, I told her the whole story. I didn't cry. I just talked. She sat with her arms crossed, eyes soft, and listened without interrupting until the very end. Then she said, "You're a good dad, Ethan. I hope you know that." I didn't know it. Not really. But hearing her say it made me want to try harder to believe it. That week I wrote in my journal, on the 173rd day. I thought I was carrying this alone. I'm not. People are holding up this house in ways I never asked for but desperately needed. Maybe love doesn't always look the way it used to. Maybe now it looks like grocery runs, hallway jokes, and coloring pages stuck to the fridge. I still missed Lauren every single day. But the world hadn't abandoned me just because she had. And that thought alone was enough to keep me standing. It started with Sophie showing up at the door with takeout. I had just finished cleaning up after a dinner no one really touched when she appeared, holding a brown paper bag and 2 plastic forks. "Figured you probably didn't feed yourself today," she said. It wasn't a question, more like she was pointing out a fact. She was right. I hadn't. I didn't invite her in, but she stepped inside anyway. Sophie wasn't the type to wait for permission she knew wasn't coming. She set the food down on the table, glanced around and said, "This place could use a plant or two." "A plant?" I raised an eyebrow. "Something alive that doesn't ask for snacks every 15 minutes, she replied with a shrug. I laughed, really laughed. For the first time in longer than I could remember. She came back that Friday, this time with groceries. "I don't need help," I told her. "Yes, you do," she said, tossing frozen waffles into the freezer. "And I'm not here for you. I like your kids." And she meant it. Maya warmed up to her immediately. They bonded over glitter nail polish and matching hair ties. Caleb was slower to trust, more guarded. But when Sophie sat beside him one afternoon and asked if he liked graphic novels, his face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. She never tried to fill Lauren's place. She didn't mention her, didn't ask about the letter. She just kept showing up with cereal, card games, new shoelaces for Caleb's sneakers. Small things that said, "I see how hard you're trying, and I'm here to back you up." 3 weeks later, she stayed for dinner. I made spaghetti that came out a little too salty. Maya insisted we use the fancy plastic plates usually saved for birthdays. Caleb set the table without being told. When Sophie thanked them, both kids grinned like they'd won something. After they went to bed, she and I sat on the couch with the dishwasher humming in the background. She slipped off her shoes, tucked her legs underneath herself and said, "You know, I like it here. It's messy, but it's honest." I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded and poured us both glasses of the terrible wine Hannah had given me for Christmas. We didn't label what this was. We didn't define anything. But I knew something had shifted. The next time she came, she brought a board game. Caleb got competitive. Maya made up her own rules. Sophie laughed through all of it, eyes bright, completely at ease. When the kids were finally in bed, she lingered at the door. "You sure you're okay with this?" she asked. "With what?" "Me. Being around." I hesitated, then asked, "Why do you keep coming?" She looked me straight in the eye. "Because I want to." Then she kissed me. Quick, soft, like punctuation at the end of a sentence we'd been circling around for weeks. And then she left. That night, I didn't pick up the notebook. I didn't feel the need. There was nothing to mourn in that moment. Just something new, warm, and unexpected settling into the empty space Lauren had left behind. The first milestone Lauren missed was Maya's 6th birthday. It was early July, hot and buzzing with cicadas, the kind of day made for sprinklers and half-melted popsicles. Maya wanted a unicorn party. She circled the date on the kitchen calendar herself. When I asked what kind of cake she wanted, she said, "Pink, with sparkles. And magic." We did our best. Hannah handled the decorations. Sophie showed up early with bags of party supplies and a plastic tiara that made Maya light up. Caleb blew up balloons, acting too cool for it but still wearing the party hat in the end. Lauren didn't call. No card. No message. I'd saved her number in a separate folder on my phone months before. A place I only looked when I wanted to hurt. That morning I checked it once. Nothing. Maya never mentioned her. She didn't peek out at the driveway, didn't ask if her mom was coming. She just spun around in her birthday dress, laughing under the streamers like life was exactly the way it was supposed to be. That night, after everyone left and the glitter had been swept into corners, Sophie and I sat on the porch while the kids fell asleep inside. "You did good today," she told me. I shook my head. "I didn't bake the cake." "You held it together," she said. "That's more than most people could have done." I didn't argue. I just handed her the last slice and watched her eat it like it was the first decent meal of the day. A month later, Caleb turned 9. He didn't want a party, just pizza and a movie night with a few friends. We ordered too much soda, invited 3 classmates, and let them stay up far too late with superhero movies. Sophie was there, helping with snacks and cracking jokes about the villains. Caleb laughed harder that night than I'd heard in months. After the boys went home, he curled up on the couch under a blanket and whispered, "Do you think she remembered?" I hesitated, then said, "Yeah, I think so." He nodded like he believed me, even though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. That week, I wrote in the journal, the 286th day. A full year. 2 birthdays without her. The kids are smiling, adapting. I don't know if I should feel proud or terrified. Somewhere out there, she missed it all. The cake, the candles, the way Maya belts out the birthday song like she invented it. I wonder if she feels it, if the silence of her absence ever gets loud. Sophie never pushed, never asked questions. But I saw it in her eyes when she looked at the kids now, softer, deeper, like she was memorizing them. And I saw it in the way they looked back. We hadn't talked about what we were, not yet. But the kids didn't ask either. They just started saying her name more gently. They let her braid hair, check math homework, tuck them in sometimes. She wasn't trying to replace anyone. She was just there, showing up. And sometimes that's all a kid really remembers. By the time I asked Sophie to marry me, it didn't feel like a gamble. It felt like the natural next step in a life we were already living. She was brushing her teeth, and I was sitting on the edge of the tub, watching Maya in the mirror as she tore up and down the hallway in pajamas, yelling something about building a pillow fortress. Caleb was downstairs with headphones on, half watching a movie and half texting whoever he insisted wasn't important. I looked at Sophie, hair tied back, toothbrush in hand, tired in that beautiful, lived-in way, and I just said it. "Marry me." She turned slowly, toothbrush still between her lips. "You're kidding." "I'm really not." She studied me for a long moment, foam at the corner of her mouth. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." She didn't answer right away. She spat into the sink, wiped her mouth, and asked, "Are you asking because it feels safe, or because you can't picture the next 10 years without me?" I didn't flinch. "Because I can't picture the next 10 minutes without you." She let out a shaky breath, then finally nodded. "Okay, yes." We were married 6 months later, right in the backyard. The grass was patchy, the lights were cheap, and the chairs were borrowed from Hannah's church. But Maya thought it was a fairy tale. She wore a flower crown and announced herself as the petal boss. Caleb stood beside me, taller now, shoulders squared like he understood what this moment meant. Hannah officiated. She teared up halfway through, and Sophie, without missing a beat, handed her a tissue right in the middle of our vows. That was the kind of love we had, not flashy or cinematic, but steady, practical, real. When we finally kissed, Maya shouted, "Finally!" Caleb grinned, a real smile, not the guarded ones I'd gotten used to, And for the first time in a long while I felt whole. Life didn't turn perfect, but it became livable. Sophie moved in. She stopped saying, "Your son," and simply said, "Caleb." Maya started with Soph, then shifted to Mom Sophie, and eventually just Mom, when nobody was making a big deal about it. We didn't correct her. We didn't have to. There were still mornings we missed the bus, days of cold cereal, and forgotten permission slips. But there was also laughter at the dinner table, movie nights that ended with all of us asleep on the living room floor, and bedtime fights that ended in hugs. We weren't fixing what had been lost. We were building something new. And that's when I stopped writing. Not all at once, but slowly. The journal sat untouched on my nightstand for weeks, and then one day, while cleaning out the closet, I dropped it into a storage bin with old bills, toddler art projects, and tangled up cords. That notebook had carried me through the worst, but I didn't need it anymore. Almost a year later, Caleb found it. He was helping me haul boxes from the attic when I heard the sound of tape peeling back. I turned just as his face shifted, from curiosity to something sharper. He sat down on the attic floor and began to read. I didn't stop him. When he finally looked up, he asked, "She left because of another man?" I nodded. "Cole." He was quiet for a while. Then, "You didn't think I deserved to know?" "I didn't want that to be the only version of her you carried with you," I said. "She didn't come back." "I know." He stood, holding the journal like it burned. "You let me believe she was broken, but she made a choice." "She did," I admitted. "And so did I. I chose to protect you." He didn't reply, just walked down the stairs, slow and deliberate. That night, the journal was on my bed. A sticky note was stuck to the cover. "Thanks for telling me. Even if it was late." We were steady. But steady doesn't mean unshakable. The past has a way of slipping back in, quietly, like water seeping under a door. And I had the sense it wasn't finished with us yet. After Caleb found the journal, the house got quiet in a different way. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the sharp, tense kind, like we were all waiting for something to crack. He didn't yell or slam doors, but he stopped talking much at dinner. He stopped hanging around the kitchen while Sophie made tea. He stopped saying goodnight like the words themselves had soured. I gave him space. Not because I was avoiding him, but because I trusted he needed time to sit with what he had read. By the end of the week, though, I couldn't stand it anymore. One night after Maya was asleep, I knocked on his door. He looked up from his desk without speaking. "You want to talk about it?" I asked. He shrugged. "What's left to say?" "A lot, probably." I walked in and sat on the edge of his bed. There was laundry piled in the corner and a book lying open on his nightstand, abandoned halfway through. His room looked like a place caught between childhood and something older. "I don't blame you for being mad," I said. "I'm not mad," he replied. "I'm rethinking everything." "Fair," I said quietly. He dragged a hand through his hair. "She left us. But it wasn't just leaving. It was leaving for him. And then she just disappeared." "Yeah. And all those years," he went on, "I waited for her to come back. Thought maybe she was sick, or lost or sad. But she chose it. She did." He finally met my eyes. "Do you think she regrets it?" I let out a breath. "Maybe. I hope so. But I don't know if that changes anything." After a long pause, he asked, "What if she shows up again?" The air felt still. "You think she will?" "I don't know. But if she did, would you let her in?" I hesitated. "I'd let you decide." He frowned. "That's a cop-out." "No," I said gently. "It's the truth. You and Maya, you're not little kids anymore. You have a right to choose who gets to be in your life." He stared at the floor. "What about Sophie? She knows everything. She's not afraid of ghosts." He gave a short laugh. "She's tougher than you." "No argument there," I said. A few days later, Maya found out. She wasn't supposed to, but Caleb had left the journal on the kitchen table when he went to get water, and she opened it. Just for a moment, but it was enough. She came into our room in tears. "She left for someone else?" she whispered. Sophie pulled her into her arms immediately. I grabbed the journal and flipped through the pages, realizing how raw those words were. Too raw for a child to carry. She didn't want us? Maya asked, eyes wide. No, honey, I said, kneeling beside her. She loved you. She just made a terrible mistake. She lost herself. That was never your fault. She should have come back, she said. I know. She buried her face against Sophie's chest and asked nothing more. Later that night, when the kids were asleep, Sophie sat with me in the quiet. She might come back, you know, she said softly. I've thought about that, I admitted. What would you do? I'd protect them. But I wouldn't hide it anymore, I said. Sophie nodded. Good. They deserve the truth. Even the hard parts. And then she did come back. On a Sunday. No call, no warning. Just a knock at the door. Sophie was in the garden with Maya, planting the last of the fall bulbs. Caleb was upstairs working on a physics project. I was in the kitchen, halfway through chopping onions, when I heard it. The knock wasn't frantic or hesitant. It was steady, like she had practiced it. I opened the door and there she was. Lauren. Older. Thinner. Lines etched deeper around her eyes. She looked like someone trying to appear put together, but with no clue what this house had turned into without her. Hi, she said. I know this is a shock. I didn't move. What do you want? She swallowed hard. To see them. Just see them. Behind me. I heard the screen door creak and little footsteps on the porch. Maya froze when she saw her. Lauren's breath caught. Maya, hi. Maya didn't speak. She just looked at me. Dad? She wants to talk, I said gently. Maya turned back to Lauren. You left. I know, Lauren whispered. I'm sorry. I thought about you every day. You missed everything. I know. Why now? I was scared, she said. But I'm not anymore. And I need to try. Maya stared a moment longer, then turned and walked back toward the garden without a word. Lauren flinched like the rejection was physical. Then Caleb appeared in the doorway. He looked at her like she was something he had long since outgrown. Not with anger, not even hate, just distance. Hi, Caleb, she said. He didn't answer. He just leaned against the frame, arms crossed, unreadable. You probably don't want to see me either, Lauren said. But I needed to come. Needed for who? He asked. She faltered. I don't need closure, he told her. I got that the day you stopped showing up. Caleb, I remember the last thing you said to me. You told me you'd be home for movie night. I was lying to myself, she said quietly. I didn't know how to say goodbye. You didn't say anything, he shot back. You just left. I stepped in then. That's enough for today. Lauren nodded and looked at me. Really looked. For the first time. You look happy, she said. I'm glad. You should go, I told her. She hesitated. Can I write them? Letters. I won't show up again. I just want to say what I couldn't before. I didn't answer right away. Finally, I nodded. Leave them with me. They'll decide if they want them. She reached into her bag, pulled out 2 sealed envelopes, and handed them over. Then she turned, walked down the steps, and out of their lives for the second time. This time, she didn't look back. That night, Caleb came into the kitchen while I was doing dishes. You gonna read mine first? He asked. No, I told him. It's yours. You do what you want with it. He held the envelope like it was something toxic. Then he tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. I already know everything I need to, he said. Maya didn't open hers either. She just set it on her nightstand and curled up next to Sophie on the couch, arms wrapped tight around her. She didn't ask if Lauren would come back. She already knew. It was Maya who asked for the meeting. 2 weeks after Lauren showed up at the door, after Caleb ripped up his letter and Sophie finished off a bottle of wine just trying to keep us steady that night, Maya came downstairs with her envelope clutched in both hands. I want to see her, she said. But not alone. Caleb looked up from the couch. Why? I want her to see me, Maya said. And I want to ask her why I wasn't enough. That line sliced through the air like glass. I didn't argue. The next day I called Lauren. We met at the community center neutral ground. A plain conference room with dusty windows and plastic chairs, the kind of place used for grief groups or town halls. Lauren arrived early. She brought tissues. She wore a sweater I half remembered from before she left, as if that detail might mean something. Sophie waited outside with a book, even though I knew she hated not being in the room. She understood this wasn't her fight to take on. Maya and Caleb walked in together. Caleb didn't glance at Lauren. Maya did. Lauren stood, but Maya went straight to her chair. "You can talk first," Maya said flatly, like a command. Lauren cleared her throat. "I don't expect this to fix anything, but I need you to hear me. I left because I thought it would make me feel alive again. Didn't. It wrecked everything. I spent years pretending I didn't miss you too. I was ashamed, and I didn't know how to come back from it." "You didn't come back," Caleb said, voice sharp. "You waited until we were old enough to carry the weight ourselves." Lauren looked like she wanted to argue but didn't. She just nodded. "You missed my whole childhood," Maya said. "You missed my recitals, my surgeries, my glittery birthday parties. You weren't there when I had nightmares. Sophie was." Lauren swallowed. "I know." "No, you don't," Caleb said. "If you really did, you wouldn't be here asking us to relive it so you can feel better. I'm not asking for forgiveness." "Yes, you are," he shot back. "You just don't want to say the word." Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out the envelope. "I read your letter," she said. "You said you love me." "I do," Lauren whispered. "You don't get to say that anymore." Lauren's face broke. "I understand." "No, you don't," Maya said. "But that's okay, because I'm done trying to make you." She stood and Caleb rose with her. Lauren didn't move. She didn't cry. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, like a ghost watching the living walk past. Before leaving, Maya turned back once. "You could have come home," she said. "But we're not your home anymore." That was it. The first and last meeting. On the drive back, Caleb stared out the window. Maya held my hand in the back seat, her grip tighter than usual. "I'm proud of you," I told her quietly. "I'm proud of me too," she whispered back. That night, Sophie didn't ask for details. She just held them both for a long time, her arms wide enough somehow to carry everything Lauren had dropped. And from that night forward, none of us said her name again. The letter came in the mail, no return address, sealed tight. I knew her handwriting the moment I saw it. This time it wasn't for Caleb or Maya. It was for me. Inside was a single sheet. No greeting. No warmth. "You poisoned them against me. You let another woman raise my children. You replaced me like I was nothing. They were mine before they were yours. And I'm getting them back. I'll take you to court if I have to." I read it 3 times before setting it down. Not because I couldn't believe it, because I was too tired to feel anything else. It was like she'd set a fire 6 years ago, walked back to the ashes and shouted, "Who put this out?" Sophie found me at the sink, clutching the letter. She didn't ask what it said. She just read my face. "She's not done, is she?" "No," I told her. "She's just getting louder." Sophie stepped closer. "We'll fight it if it comes to that." "We shouldn't have to," I said. "They've already made their choice." She laid a hand on my arm. "She doesn't care about that. This isn't about love. It's about control." A week later, a lawyer called. Lauren had filed paperwork asking for restored parental access. Not custody. Not yet. Just the warning shot that said she wasn't leaving quietly. That night, I sat the kids down. Maya was curled on the couch. Caleb stood behind her like a guard. "She's threatening court," I said. "She thinks I turned you against her." "She turned herself against us," Caleb muttered. Maya looked up. "Does she think we're going to live with her?" I stayed quiet. Maya straightened. "I'm not going anywhere. You're my dad. Sophie's my mom. She had her chance." Caleb didn't speak. He walked over to the trash, tore out a sheet of notebook paper, and wrote something in thick marker. Then he taped it to the front door. It read, "We live here. You don't." 2 days later, Lauren showed up again. No knock this time, just her shouting from the lawn. "You poisoned them." she screamed. You let her take my place. Sophie was inside with Maya. I stepped out and closed the door behind me. They're not possessions, I said. You put my daughter in the arms of a stranger. She's not a stranger, I told her. She's the one who stayed. Lauren moved closer. I gave birth to them. And then you left. I want them back. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move. I just said, they're not going with you. She broke right there. The sobs weren't quiet or soft. They were jagged, raw, the kind of sound that came from years of burying something too heavy. But I didn't step forward. I didn't comfort her. The one who needed comfort was behind that door, hearing the woman who abandoned her scream about ownership. Lauren stumbled off the lawn without another word. That was the last time she came. A month later, we got official notice. She'd withdrawn the legal request. No explanation, just silence. I waited weeks before telling the kids. Good, Maya said simply. Caleb nodded, turned up the volume on his music, and left it at that. One morning, I noticed the sign he'd made was still taped to the door. The paper had faded, corners curling. I didn't take it down. It wasn't just for her anymore. It was for all of us. A line in the sand that said, "This is our life. You don't get to rewrite it." Time moved on the way it always does. Not quickly, not kindly, just steady. Fall slipped into winter, and the snow came earlier than usual that year. Caleb got his driver's license. Maya started filling pages with poems she wouldn't let anyone else see. Sophie and I found ourselves watching them more than guiding them, realizing we weren't steering anymore, just walking beside them while they figured things out on their own. Lauren never came back. Not to the house. Not to the lawn. Not to a courtroom. There were no more letters, no lawyers, no demands. Just silence. And this time it didn't feel threatening. Felt final. I think she understood. Deep down, she must have realized this wasn't a house waiting to be reclaimed. It was a family that had rebuilt without her. One night in January, Caleb came home from school with snow tangled in his hair and something unsettled in his eyes. He dropped his bag and said simply, "I saw her." My chest tightened. "Where?" "At the grocery store." She looked right at me. I hesitated. Did she say anything? No. She just turned and walked away. He stood there a second longer, then grabbed an apple from the bowl and headed upstairs like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. We both knew it. 2 weeks later, Maya asked me what Lauren's favorite flower was. We were sitting at the kitchen table, just the two of us. She was doodling little forget-me-nots in the margins of a math worksheet. "Why do you want to know?" I asked. She shrugged. "Just writing something." I thought for a moment. "Lilies, I think. White ones. She used to keep them on the windowsill." Maya nodded, quiet. "I don't hate her anymore." I looked at her. "No? I don't forgive her," she said. "But I don't think about her all the time, and that feels better." I smiled. That's peace. That spring, Sophie and I cleaned out the attic. It was her idea. She said she wanted to clear out the old energy. I laughed at the phrasing, but I knew what she meant. That's when we found the box with the journal again. Sophie picked it up. "You want to keep this?" I opened the cover. The pages still smelled like ink and memory, like grief caught on paper. "No," I said. "I don't need it anymore." We tossed it into the donation pile. Sophie didn't ask if I was sure. She just took my hand and squeezed it. On a warm May afternoon, we had dinner outside. Sophie grilled chicken. Maya played music through a little Bluetooth speaker, and Caleb set the table without being asked. We didn't bring up the past. We didn't need to. We were here. We were whole. Not because we fixed what had been broken, but because we built something stronger in its place. That's what letting go really looks like. Not silence. Not forgetting. But choosing the life that remained. I used to think closure was something you chased. That if you said the right words, faced the right confrontation, or finally got the apology you deserved, the pain would fold itself up and leave. But that's not how it works. Closure isn't handed to you. It's something you decide. It's been a few years since Lauren vanished for the second time. The kids are older now, nearly grown. Caleb just started his first job. Maya's already sketching out college plans. Sophie and I catch ourselves standing in doorways, watching them laugh, argue, and dream, amazed by how much of their lives we've been lucky enough to see. Sometimes the hard years come up in conversation, but the tone is different. They talk about them like survivors, not victims. They acknowledge the scar without needing to rip it open again. I still remember the night Lauren left. Her voice, the way she shut the door like she thought she'd walk back through it a week later. She never did. Not as the same person. But somehow we moved forward anyway. Not because we forgave her, but because we forgave ourselves for not being able to save her. Tonight the house is quiet. Maya's asleep early. Finals coming up. Caleb's out with friends, sending me texts I never asked for, because that's just who he is. Sophie's on the couch with a blanket, one ear tuned to a true crime podcast. And me, I'm sitting at the table with a single sheet of paper in front of me. I thought about starting another journal, but that season's gone. So instead I wrote this. One page, one last thought. Maybe one day Caleb will read it. Or Maya. Or maybe it'll get tossed like an old receipt. That's fine. It isn't for them. It's for me. To the man I used to be. You did it. You broke. But you didn't stay broken. You raised two incredible kids who carry both your strength and your softness. You loved again, not because it was easy, but because it mattered. You learned that family isn't the one who lingers the longest. It's the one who shows up when it's hardest. You were left behind, but you didn't wait. You built. I fold the page and slip it into the drawer beside the stove. Not as a secret, just a reminder. Because sometimes love means leaving. But sometimes love means staying. Even when it hurts. Even when it's hard. Especially then.